Retail workers of Reddit, what's your Black Friday horror story? Not so much a horror story but something I just couldn't believe. Black Friday at Asda British Walmart, there was these microwaves like 70% off and the store and was so busy you couldn't move. There was empty shelves all along the aisle up to these microwaves and a guy laid down on the shelf and army crawled along the shelves, grabbed a microwave and army crawled back with it. Edit. Spelling. We had a lady call the police on our store because we sold out of a TV. I really wish I was lying. They came too. It was technically the day after Black Friday, but it was still busy as all hell. I worked as a customer service supervisor at AM USA before they closed down Think Best Buy, and all of my checkers called in sick that morning. All of them. So I'm the only freaking one ringing people up for the first like 6 hours of the day. When I finally got a 15-minute break, I went into the back area and blew up at the first manager I could find. I was so pissed and stressed. He just sat there and let me vent to him. After a little while I went back to him and apologized to him, and he was cool with it all. That day sucked. Worked at a store that had a service department. They couldn't ring up anything at the service counter, but they had a computer which made it look like a register. Guy is standing there patiently waiting to be rung up. Finally somebody notices him and asks what he needs. "I'd like to pay," he says. "I'm sorry, this isn't a register," replies the service tech. The guy then proceeds to try and convince the service tech to let him pay because the line for the main registers is 3 hours long. Of course the service tech couldn't because he didn't have a register. He just had a computer for making appointments and such. So after 15 minutes of argument the guy moves off to find the line. Here's the fun part. While he was arguing, somebody else saw him standing by something that looked like a register and so got in line behind him. Then people saw the shorter line and got in behind them. With nobody to control at the line to nowhere grew quickly. 15 minutes was all it took for the not line to snake all the way around the department. So when the doofus who started this whole fiasco went to find the right line, he found the end of the line he had started. Then the guy behind him heard that there wasn't a register, so he followed the first guy. Then the next customer followed the second and so on. They walked around in a circle for an hour before somebody noticed them. We almost had a riot when a manager had to tell 100 people that they weren't in line and had just waited an hour for nothing. That same year we had several scuffles at points where the register line had forked into 2 lines. From then on we marked off a huge register path and had several employees just manage the line. Worked at Walmart years ago. One of my mangers thought she was being sneaky and swapped my Black Friday off shift with an on at 9 AM. My shifts normally didn't start until 1 and ended at 9, so this was utter bullshit. I was in the bakery department and had to work all of Thanksgiving the day before, and they ended up needing more help. I came in at 6 AM that day and worked a 14-hour shift because most of my team had been given the holiday off. My manager's excuse being you're young. They have families they need to be with and kids to celebrate with, so I was pretty angry. I found out that the Black Friday sale was a 65 LCD TV in electronics and PS3s, so needless to say it was going to be a bloodbath. I stayed in my department because there was literally no one else there and caught up on much needed sanitation. When the manager found out before the sale started, she came my way to rain down fire, brimstone, and bullshit on me. Thankfully, I could use their own bullshit policies against them. There needs to be at least one member of the bakery crew on hand to write on cakes, and since I was the only one there, they were shoot out to luck. I got out of Black Friday bullshit, got an easy day of work, and the perfect spot to watch the chaos all while screwing over a manager I hated. It was a beautiful day. I worked at Toys R Us some years ago. No standout bad customers, but it surprised me how many parents brought their young children out at 3 AM and then got mad and would yell at their children for whining/crying because you can't get any toys. Christmas is next month. Ask Santa. Your kid is exhausted and you drag them to a toy store. Of course they're gonna be pissed off. Working there really changed my perspective from being annoyed at shooty kids in public to being annoyed at shooty parents. I saw a woman on Facebook tonight complaining about a local Walmart employee checking her bags and asking out loud if she had item X on her receipt while looking at it, and telling Walmart corporate that they ruined Christmas because her daughter was standing right there and had no idea she was getting item X. This took place after midnight. The kid shopped with the parent and stood in line with this cart full of shoes, presumably. I just don't freaking get it, man. I work at the largest lingerie retailer in the country. We had a security guard last night for the beginning of Black Friday. A Southern Belle mother decided she didn't want to wait in a 50-person deep line, and she would cut. Our security guard asked her multiple times to step to the back of the line or leave. She proceeded to ream him with every curse word in the book and ended by threatening him with a gun she had in her bag. This will be my last holiday in retail. He customer who took a shoot in one of my fitting rooms and then wiped HSS with a $125 Polo Ralph Lauren shirt. Nothing more needs to be said. I worked for a golf superstore as a cashier. Black Friday customers come rushing in and the line starts. I proceed to scan the first item and nothing. The registers are completely down and the lines are growing fast. The only thing we could do is take every transaction manually, write down SKUs, calculate tax, and use the old credit card swipers for 3 hours. I never worked retail during Black Friday again. This year was surprisingly tame. People were all in really good moods, which in turn makes me happy. Last year a woman yelled at me for taking too much time to finish her transaction, that her kids were in the car and she didn't want CPS to take them. Okay then. I worked at a grocery store in high school. Black Friday was my favorite day all year. Hardly anyone goes food shopping the day after Thanksgiving. Former GameStop manager. The worst one I ever worked was 2006. Everyone wanted a damn Wii. When I got to the store at 4 AM to prep for the 5 AM opening, there were people wrapped around the shopping center in a line for the damn thing, even though I had a sign on the door explicitly stating that we could only guarantee them for the first 6 people. When I made the announcement to the folks in line, I thought I was about to get my ass kicked by more than a couple bus grandmas and soccer moms who had been waiting since midnight. After opening, our systems were unbearably slow when processing credit cards, but they still worked. The rest of the day was busy, but not too terrible other than the beachy people who couldn't find a Wii. Fast forward 3 days later, a lady walks into the store with a bank statement and starts laying into me about her card being charged $200 4 times processing, not drafted yet BTW. She insists that she won't walk out until I give her $600 cash from the register. It ended with her and I on speakerphone with my district manager, who politely told her to piss off and call her bank. Cops were very nearly called during the ensuing screaming. This is with a store packed with customers. Fun stuff. As it turned out, our credit card processor had been overwhelmed that day, and this turned out to be a wide issue. It was the explanation for the system slowdown on Black Friday. The charges dropped off after a couple days. Edit. As others have mentioned, she had every reason to be pissed. I would be too. This woman made it very personal, to the point where she was taking liberties with my sexuality and parentage. Be pissed, but you can be angry without being a raging cant. At Staples, I watched 2 grown men get into a brawling fist fight over a $30 label maker. It wasn't even the last one. When I was 15 I got my first actual job. It was at a clothing store and my first day was Black Friday. I thought it wouldn't be a big deal because I was hired for men's formal wear. When I show up at 4 AM, the manager tells me I'm working women's shoes today only. Absolute madness. The worst part is shoe salesmen get commission, but since I didn't have employee numbers I got only minimum wage, losing out of hundreds of dollars extra pay. When I worked at Best Buy I watched 2 elderly ladies get in a fist fight over a Nintendo DS. That and the cleaning the aftermath of Black Friday. Looked like a grocery store before a hurricane. I used to work at Walmart during the late 90s. I worked overnights unloading trucks, and back then the store I worked at didn't have mechanized lifts to get stuff up into the bins in the back, so stock reserved for the Blitz sale was all thrown up there by hand. Anyways, 3 hours to go. We had to get 3 pallets worth of 19-inch symphonic court TVs down. My co-worker, Alan, didn't want to throw them down one at a time, so he pushed a pallet of Pampers down first, followed by all 3 pallets of TVS. Over the next few days, several of those TVS came back as returns. I try to think that they were crap, but also wonder how many were damaged during the fall. Just today I sold a couch to a guy who drove a Prius with no roof rack. We do not deliver, and he won't leave until we found a way to get this thing secured to his car somehow. Not only had he clearly not planned ahead or thought it through, he was a total jerk about it and insisted on making it our problem. We ended up using half a spool of twine to tie this thing down, and he had to climb in through the window because the twine went through his doors. I really wish I had taken a picture. At one point he complained to our GM, who had no idea what we were supposed to have done to appease this moron. Finally, we insisted that he sign a waiver before leaving, because we were not about to be held responsible for his own stupidity. Of course, this was also during the busiest part of the day. I don't mind helping load or tie down for customers, but this guy took the cake. Worked greets at American Eagle today. My job was to stand at the front and tell you what the sale was. Some lady walked in with like 8 bags and the alarm went off. So I smiled and said that it went off most likely because there's possibly still a tag on one of her items. This was her response: "I just walked in and you're already accusing me of stealing," and then stormed off. Nothing special honestly, just another day of retail. Yeah. Small Canadian town life. About 6 years ago I was working at a mall bookstores cafe. I had the opening shift, which thankfully because it was in a mall was 8 AM to 2 PM. Unfortunately, the late shift person called in sick, so I had 2 hours off before a 4 PM close shift. While that sucks, it wasn't the worst part of the day. I actually had a customer who was stalking me and spent the entire day sitting in the cafe reading a book and occasionally coming up to order something new. Anytime I wasn't behind the counter or in the back room he followed me around, including during my 2-hour shift gap. I didn't dare go to my car on my break because I didn't want him knowing what it looked like, and my manager didn't want to call security on him if he didn't actually approach me. Worst Black Friday ever. Luckily, 2 weeks later he did approach me while I was working and asked if he could clip my fingernails as a keepsake. That was enough to get him banned from not only the store, but also the mall. My manager also made sure someone walked me to my car for the next few months, so it was all good. Not retail, but I worked at a restaurant that is right across the street from the mall and open Black Friday, so naturally after people get great deals on whatever they come eat. Anyway, I'm sitting in back of the house Black Friday morning, waiting for my inevitably long shift to start. It was incredibly busy as it was, but I wasn't about to clock in early. I was sitting with one of the managers when I heard a hostess scream through the walkie, "Help, help." So I immediately rushed to the entrance to see 2 grown men on the ground fighting, one in nothing but his underwear, and my shift lead trying to pull them off each other while screaming, "Fucking stop. This is a family restaurant, there are children here." I jolted forward in an attempt to break up the fight. This is where it gets weird. Everyone is gathered around this small area watching or trying to help when someone grabbed a fire extinguisher and started spraying us with it. So we have a bunch of people trying to break up a fight between a man in his underwear and some other dude and someone spraying us with a fire extinguisher while we have Christmas carols playing in the background. Finally we get the fight broken up. Cops show up. The whole 9 yards. Turns out the guy got the last TV/voucher or whatever for the Best Buy, and the other guy got pissed and followed him over to try to buy the TV from him. The one who got the TV told him to frick off, so this guy took off his pants and they got into a fight. Guy 1 got the last TV/voucher from Best Buy, and guy 2 was very angry about that, so he followed him over to the restaurant to try and buy the TV from him. Guy 1 told guy 2 to frick off, so guy 2 took off his pants and started to fight guy 1. I work at a gas station, so I'm somewhat immune to Black Friday-itis. The worst we got this morning was cars lined up to get gas. On the other hand, we had a few Walmart workers come in, and they looked like they just came back from the war. Both of them had ladies ram their carts into their legs to get at the merch. The guy said it was just a flurry of shredded plastic and hands when they kicked off the sales. Nobody got a full break, and the catered food was cold and well picked over by the time they could break. A car had sideswiped another car, damaging the paint pretty bad, and tried to drive off. On top of all, fear not getting time and a half for working Thursday night into Friday morning, cause it's not technically a holiday anymore. At least he got a homemade cupcake. I brought in cupcakes for the ladies working Thanksgiving at my job. Edit. I had that Walmart employee as a customer again today. He told my boss and I about how one of his co-workers was practically trampled. She's a petite little thing and got tripped accidentally this time. Not on purpose like the cart rammers by one customer. Fell down and had several more walk on / over her. She's okay. She's just sore and has bruising all over her legs. We seriously thought he was bullshitting us at first on this story, but he was dead serious. I've worked quite a few Black Fridays, but the worst had to be Radio Shack. It was my first day, and I had no training. All I could do is point and hope to God they didn't ask me questions. My first Black Friday was gross. We were relatively calm, and then suddenly a lady bursts into the store with a cart from Target and heads to our bathroom. I shrug it off. A few minutes later a customer asks where the bathroom is, and I point her to it. She comes back seconds later saying that someone used the bathroom on the floor. It was my first job and my first Black Friday, so I called a manager. My manager went in and rushed out. Apparently the lady who first rushed in took a shoot but missed. Instead of in, she did it next to the toilet bowl. My manager ended up having to clean it up. Thank God for not being certified in bodily fluid cleanup. I went outside the bathroom and saw cart tracks of poo making a little path through the store. I have no clue how it got on the wheel. I mopped it up and later in the day I found another poo spot by / almost under one of the couches. I have no clue how that happened. It was disgusting. Surprisingly I was still able to eat after that, but my manager called. We haven't had anything like that happen again, and instead of Black Friday, it was known as Brown Friday. I worked at Walmart during Black Friday about 12 to 13 years ago. The hot items that year were $10 DVD players and trampolines. The DVD players were stacked on 2 tables near the registers and the trampolines were in sporting goods. I'm walking to the receiving area in the back and someone from sporting goods asks if I can grab a U-boat or L cart to load up the last trampoline. I had to go all the way to grocery to get one, and as I'm coming back, someone asks about an item. So I walk 2 feet away from my cart and some woman grabs it and runs towards sporting goods. I get there, and the woman and husband are loading up the trampoline and it wasn't even for them. The other lady that had it and purchased it, the receipt and all, just needed a carry out, said hey, that's mine, and the husband got in her face and said what are you gonna do about it, beach? They started to walk off and I was shocked at that point, and the husband looked at me and said the frick's your problem? I just smiled and told the sporting good guy to call management. The husband then said run, honey, and they booked it to the front. They made it out of the store with the trampoline too. Then I get to the front near the $10 DVD players. One older woman grabs the last one left on one of the 2 tables. Another lady grabs the same one. They scuffle. One lady decks the other one into the other table full of $10 DVD players and they all fall over and she runs. Never freaking again. Oh boy. A reason to tell the story of what happened today. So I work at the largest consumer electronics store in the US. I really do love my job. Management is easy to work with me, etc. Black Friday, however, sucks. It just sucks. So much. Today is like any other. I get there about 45 minutes before we open at 8 AM. Help everyone prepare, etc. Store opens. Things are going smoothly. I'm wearing a sweater over my uniform because it was slightly chilly outside. So I'm about an hour into my shift and something dawns on me. I'm sweating. Like really bad. Now, I'm a big guy, but not big enough to be sweating while standing still. So I knew something was wrong. It dawns on me that I'm suddenly getting really sick. I call one of my co-workers over and tell them to finish with this transaction I'm on and I bolt. Now fun fact about our store is we're really small. So small in fact that the men's bathroom only has one toilet. So I burst into the door and it's shut and locked. So into the trash can all of my Thanksgiving goes. Him just heaving into the trash can. Some guy walked in on me and just noped the frick out. I felt like garbage. So I finish and manage to worm my way back outside, and my GM looks at me and he can tell that I'm sick. He tells me to hop on a register no one uses, and I just stand there in my own corner for about 10 minutes. And then it hits me again. Off running I go again. Thank God, the stall is up, so I just start all over again, but thankfully in my own area. Afterwards I buy a water and sit in the break room to try to battle this inner demon that is trying to kill me from the inside out. It wins. It wins and it makes it infinitely worse. Throw up in the trash can in the break room. And then it starts coming out the other end. So I immediately turn and sprint into the bathroom and drag the trash can inside with me. So I call my GM from inside the bathroom and beg him to let me leave, and thankfully he trusts me enough to let me go. TL. Doctor, someone didn't wash their hands when making Thanksgiving food. I threw up in every corner of the store. Then shoot myself and had to abandon a good pair of underwear in the trash can in the bathroom. My Black Friday 2 years ago was just the opposite of crazy. I used to work in a grocery store, so it was absolutely dead the whole shift. I have never been so utterly and thoroughly bored before or since. I would have killed for some crazy shoot to happen, just so I could have a chuckle about it the next day. I'm not an employee, but I stood behind a lady at Target who was returning a newly bought iPad. She was livid because her iPad wasn't charging. She claimed that the tablet had Wi-Fi connection to the store and it wasn't charging like it was supposed to. She was told that the cord came with it was the only way to charge it. She balked at the statement and adamantly said that since it's hooked up to Target's free Wi-Fi it should be charging. Sadly this is not the case and left spot not obscenities. Sad to think she thought Wi-Fi charged her iPad. This was about 20 years ago and I don't recall if it was actually Black Friday or just holiday shopping season. Working at Costco, I witnessed a fist fight between two men over a parking space. Started just as you'd imagine. Car A is hovering waiting for someone loading up their car to leave, and when they do car B swoops in from the other direction into the spot. It was a fairly even matchup until the girlfriend of one of them decided to give an assist with some pepper spray. She managed to pretty effectively get both of them in the face, ending the fight. By the time the ambulance and police car made their appearance, everyone trying to get in and out of that busy parking lot was pretty screwed. When I was working at Walmart, me and another co-worker had a lady come during our Black Thursday sale with her children. She was going around shopping with her kids for a while, but then she saw me and my co-worker in the bedding department and left her children with us, asking for us to watch them while she went to get some products. Before we were able to tell her no, she disappears and doesn't come back for her kids for 20 minutes. Both of us are just standing there, watching her kids slowly freak out and cry for their mother, wondering if she is going to come back. My supervisor then walks by and sees what's going on, and when we filled her in, she was quite annoyed with the mother, who by this point has yet to make an appearance. When mom finally showed, her children rushed to her and my supervisor had a chat with her. Unfortunately, I didn't catch what my supervisor said to her,